before we do the formal? Also want to honor everybody's time.
Good.
And is it Paris?
Parish.
Parish.
Family name.
Do you give virtual helpings?
I wish. It's so good. I just told him I was there. And we really planned to have it ready a little bit sooner, but our son lives in town and he dropped by and it just ran. So I'll just kind of nibble, and it's really hot and cooling off. So I will not chew loudly.
I'm just being yeah, we'll play different roles on the bus, and I'll try to introduce humor maybe occasionally. So did we decide who I think it'd be good for us to open up with prayer? We ready to do that? It's 4:09 or 7:09.
Mercy offered me as a tribute, so I'll go ahead.
Okay.
No. Dear Heavenly Creator, we come to you together to start off our conversation. We come to this conversation from a lot of different places and spaces. We hope to offer our best selves to you and to this endeavor, this journey that we're going to be going on, and just pray that you would bless our conversation and the space so that we can all offer ourselves and get to know each other and look forward to this time, this journey that we're looking at. I pray for all those who couldn't attend this Zoom call, that what we share would be helpful to them too as we record it. Bless this time, bless this conversation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So we threw up a little outline as we were preparing for this. We want to first of all, thank you for your interest in this. And I don't know if you came to this through one of us who is leading it, or just generically information on the PCI website, but we will take, this is where we're going. We're gonna give a short introduction, Mercy, Carrie, and myself. We talk a little bit about some of the recurring themes or questions about security, and kind of the experiences that both Mercy and I have had in the last year in the region. We want, Carrie's going to share just a short little vignette of her first experience in 2018, because sometimes, you know, there's questions that people have. What will it be like when I go? And if you haven't gone yet, of course, if you have, you know, just take in that kind of little story that Carrie will share. And then we want to be open to questions that people have, and then any other last details in prayer. So that's kind of where we're going. But Mercy, I don't know if you want to say anything more just in terms of welcome and kind of the evolution of how we got to this place. I think that might be good.
Sure. Do you want me to just say that while I'm introducing myself?
Hey,
Like kind of conglomerate them together?
Why not?
You're recruiting my wife, so make sure.
Okay. Okay. My name is Mercy Aiken, for those of you who I see some people here that I don't know, which is wonderful. I got involved with Israel Palestine about 10 years ago, and I lived over at Bethlehem Bible College from the fall of 2015 through 2020, not the whole time. I came and went as I was able, because visa issues were always a big issue. So there might be a year where I was gone and then I'd come back, but I was always coming and going. That was my life to and from Bethlehem. So um, I've gotten to know that area very, very well. The Palestinian issue is very, very close to my heart. If you follow me on social media, you know I talk an awful lot about it. Um, I had the privilege of helping Bashar Awad write his biography, Yet in the Dark Streets Shining, rather a memoir about how he founded the Bible College and trying to bring to light the little known story of Palestinian Christians as an avenue that can, as a voice that can reach the Western church. So after COVID hit, I was in Bethlehem when COVID hit. I eventually came back to the States when we realized that hunkering down for a few months wasn't going to stop anything. Came back to the States. And since then, I have come and gone from the land a lot. I have led 3 tours to the land, 2 women's tours with my friend Perry Zond, and then 1 tour that I just led for everyone. All of these tours I put together by scratch without a tour agency, which, like, how majnuna, how crazy can you possibly be? But I kind of handcrafted the whole tour, like based on a lot of the people that I know. I know a lot of really awesome Israelis, Jews, Muslims, Christians, all kinds of people who are just doing incredible things within their communities, whether they're working for peace and justice or they're just doing incredible things in their communities. And so that's always been part of the ethics of the types of trips that I've tried to put together, which is equal parts encountering the Lord in the Holy Land. We are in the Holy Land after all. But not just the dead stones, as Palestinians like to say, but also the living stones. So really emphasizing meeting local people who are doing incredible things on the ground, and then going places a little bit more off the beaten track. So some places that are on the beaten track, there's just some things that everybody wants to see that they haven't had opportunity to see, but there are so many hidden gems, both in terms of just historical, in terms of just people and what they're living through, places to go, villages to visit, especially in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, where most tourists never go. And so that's where we always emphasized our trips in the past. So when I started working with Peace Catalyst, I was like, we've got to do a PCI trip. And everybody was like, yes, we do. So we decided to work with Sabeel, which is a Palestinian liberation theology organization in Jerusalem, founded by Anglican priest Naim Atik, who he's very well known, very influential man now in his 80s. And I went on a trip with Sabeel last summer. It was a solidarity trip coming to the Holy Land in the middle of the war. It was in August. It was at a time when there were a lot of, tensions, like war might break out with Lebanon, which later did happen. But at this time, it was very, very tense. And there was just a group of like 8 of us. And we were led by Omar Harami, who works with the organization in Jerusalem, a very spiritual, very practical, just devout in the best way possible, also kind of cheeky Palestinian leader. And I just enjoyed Omar so much on this trip that we had, and the way that he lived and embodied his faith, constantly reflecting it back to, well, Jesus lived under empire, Jesus lived under occupation, and Jesus had kind of a cheekiness, and Jesus had a little bit of unexpected ways of dealing with the situation, but always in a spirit of love, always in a spirit of reconciliation. And Omar just embodied that in such a beautiful way. I just felt like there was so much that that others could learn from him. So when we started talking about putting together a trip with Peace Catalyst, I thought it would be really awesome if we at PCI could put together a partnership with our friends at Sabeel in Jerusalem, along with a lot of other Palestinian Christian organizations, as well as Muslim and Jewish ones. But Sabeel is also very, very well connected. I feel like I'm kind of rambling and I don't want to jump into some of the other questions and things that we might have. But this is going to be with a very well seasoned, very, very well seasoned group. Sabine has led, even during the course of this war, like 15 trips. They've led like 15 trips. They know very, very well how to keep people safe and yet also how to push boundaries, how to go off the beaten track in a way that is safe and stretching, but in a good way. So yeah, I will pass it on to Andy or Carrie.
Carrie, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself. I'll talk about the security issues, and then we'll pivot back to you. Yeah, I think Mercer at some point we'll kind of lay out the itinerary, but Carrie first.
Hi, I'm going to talk as long as I can, which isn't going to be very long, so you're okay. Carrie, Conklin, Larsen. So if you didn't know, Andy and I are connected. I kind of meandered into this conversation or this issue of justice inadvertently through working with the Syrian community in 2015, 2016, as they were resettling to Seattle during the Arab Spring, or the resulting war after the Arab Spring. And I became curious because several of the folks that were helping Syrian refugees were Palestinian. I didn't know there was such a thing as a Palestinian refugee. I didn't really know much about Palestinians at all. So then a couple of my friends very graciously helped me understand a little bit of their story. And then I met Andy, as he said, from the Lord's Army. And but seriously, I started to learn more details about, the occupation and the realities of it through his first documentary, Blessed Are the Peacemakers. And I really started to see more nuance about that time. That there was a narrative that I hadn't ever heard growing up in the little Pentecostal church that I grew up in. And, kind of Zionist by default. And, not maliciously, but really through, I would say, well-meaning compassion, out of a place of, desiring to care for the least of these, as Jesus did. And so my desire is, as someone who comes from that space and that formation, is to, and has been all along since going there, and I'll tell a little bit more about that later, is to learn how to talk and share my own journey in a way that can bring other people along who might be also from that background, and to learn how to do that in a better way, because I'm still growing and learning in that. Yeah, I'll maybe leave it at that for now. But I'm so excited to go on this pilgrimage. When Andy and I went in 2018 and then again in 2022.
And 19 Christmas.
Well, on the tours that we went on in 2018
true.
and 2022, they were, definitely we interacted with Palestinians for sure. But there were a lot of stops at the holy sites, which were great. But I really appreciate this intentional integration with Palestinians and other peacemakers, Jewish peacemakers, and both Palestinian Christians and Muslims, because I think that's just that's where I want to be. I want to abide in those places and hear from those voices and learn from them, because I'm very ill-equipped, I feel like sometimes. So I'm really looking to learn from them, um, and hear from their experience.
We'll come back to Carrie. She'll share a little bit about her first experience, but I'll introduce myself and then just say a few things about the overriding concern and questions that many people have, even offline by email, about security. So Andy Larsen, and I think my first trip was, gosh, with some colleagues in, so I'm an ordained minister. I do peacemaking work full time, but I went in 2007 with a group of mostly from Canada on a leadership retreat, and we were in Jericho. Sat at a table. I was the only Westerner with a table of Palestinian leaders from the Orthodox, the Catholic, and Protestant tradition. And I just remember starting to hear their stories, and my heart just broke as I began to see them as human beings, as fathers and mothers of kids with all these deep concerns about, how can they be a good parent in this space. Checkpoint stories of being humiliated just because somebody could humiliate them. Those were things that just began to seep into my own understanding of the place, and it was principally through stories of Palestinians that I was sitting with. Um, long story short, there's a lot that can be said, and we'll share more. I think the three of us, as we travel with you or journey with you, maybe be the word. Um, I've co-led 3 formal tours. One of those was with Mejdi, which pairs a Palestinian with an Israeli on the actual bus. And so you're hearing the various places that we visit. You're hearing, well, first of all, they're committed to each other. They're committed to honoring each other's narrative and experience, but obviously through different lenses. And so it was just a very powerful and transformative kind of way to do this. Um, a big dive for me was in 2011. I served with a group called Ecumenical Accompaniment Program for Palestine and Israel. That's a 6-letter acronym, EAPPI. Did I count right, Carrie? And I
That's
was,
5 or 6.
anyway, I was I was based in Hebron, which is a place that I think we will visit on our itinerary. Majority Palestinian urban area in the southern part of the West Bank, with half a dozen settlements right in the middle of an urban area. And the settlements there tend to be small, but very, trying to think of the best word, ideologically driven. They're the type that don't want Palestinians in the vicinity. And even though they're the minority in that urban area, they really define what happens in that area. Of 600 or so settlers, they have 1,500 to 2,000 soldiers present to protect them. There's a lot in that I experienced and saw and kind of witnessed, and became deeply broken, but also convinced of the tremendous resilience of the Palestinian community, and how the most of the experiences of the people that I built friendships with, they just wanted to raise their families. They wanted to have their freedom, um, but in many ways they could not, and so it was a tough place. I witnessed demolitions. I was a checkpoint places often early in the morning just to kind of monitor what was happening. But as you can maybe sense already from some of our stories, there's this thing that happens when you go and you visit and you do more than just go to the historic sites. When you meet people, it's transformative, and I think that's one of maybe a term I would use is we want to invite you into a transformation. We don't suggest that you have a particular viewpoint. You'll obviously hear a story that is not heard as much in the mainstream Christian spaces, but you will meet real people and you will have encounters that will probably stay with you the rest of your life. And so our role as leaders in this, so we're working with Sabile, and they'll help with logistics. They're the people that understand kind of what's happening on any given day, the nuances of what's happening from day to day. They will be we'll lean on them heavily, but our role, so Mercy, Carrie, and I, will be to walk with you, to journey with you, to be present with you as you're observing stuff. And as much as possible to keep asking how you're doing, what are you observing, and just how to be present with you as you process the experience. I'll just say one more word. So I've been there, gosh, I think it's somewhere around 15 times, and co-leading 3 tours. Mercy's been there twice this last year. And our common story is that we've never felt threatened. There's never been an issue of safety where you have to run or fear for your life. And maybe I'm not even using the right words, but the pilgrimage industry in Israel is a source of income. It's something that I think in many ways, when you go to Mount of Olives, you'll see a line of buses. There'll be 100 buses lined up of people who are coming to see the sites. They won't maybe have some of the experiences that you'll have, but it is safe. It is safe. And you'll see things maybe that you wouldn't see in your own home or particular region where you live, but it is a safe place. And the record or the word to us from Sabile is that they've had was it 15 or 16 tours since October 7th, and no incidents. So I don't know if that's a concern for people. I just wanted to put that out there. Mercy, before I talk more, could you just tell us a little bit about the itinerary, and then Carrie will share a story, and then we want to entertain your questions.
Sure. Now, as you guys have noticed, we don't have a published itinerary like day 1, day 2, day 3, and with a whole bunch of slots filled in, because this is not a big box tour that has all of that stuff mapped out, months ahead of time and follows a certain track. There is a certain element of spontaneity with these particular tours that we do with Sabile, which I think really works very, very well for the kinds of things that we're going to be doing and the place that we are. For example, we may have it on the itinerary one day. You will get an itinerary as we get closer, don't get me wrong, but we're not putting something really solid out there. And even what you do eventually get from us will be subject to change on a daily basis. For example, we will have places on the schedule, on the itinerary, like Nablus in the northern West Bank, where we will visit the church that's built over the Jacob's Well, where Jesus spoke and ministered with the Samaritan woman. And right across the street from this ancient church and this Class A historic site that most tourists never, ever go to because it's in Nablus in the northern West Bank, right across the street from there is Balata refugee camp, which has been bombed by the Israelis several times since October 7th with U.S. bombs. So like this would be a day, for example. We would visit the well. We would meet the old Orthodox priest who takes care of the well. We would have a devotional time and experience at that well, and then we would walk across the street and go into Balata, where we will hear from people on the ground about what is happening in this very, very crowded refugee camp and what their life is like and what their challenges are and what they are facing. So that would just be one example. We will meet people, like for example, it's Silwan. It's an archaeological site right outside of the old city in Jerusalem. It's actually the basis of the pool of Siloam, where Jesus made mud and put it on the eyes of the blind man. And there's this very, very ancient community that has been living around this area for centuries, and their homes are being demolished because the area is being taken over by a settlement, a very radical settlement community. Many, many homes just since October 7th have been demolished here. So this would be a place where we will probably go and meet with one of these families, maybe have dinner with them. We will probably go up to Al-Aqsa, you know, the Temple Mount. We will visit a lot of places within the old city of Jerusalem. If this trip will be like the other trips in which we will stay at one hotel, this is usually how Sabine does it. We'll stay at a hotel probably in East Jerusalem, and then we will do day trips from there. So we'll do a lot of stuff within Jerusalem. Like another thing we may do is go over to Shuafat refugee camp, which is in Jerusalem, but it's walled off from the rest of the city. They pay taxes to Jerusalem, but they don't get any services for paying those taxes. They basically pay taxes just so they can live in Jerusalem after they've been evicted from several other places. Some of these people are refugees once or twice over. And right across this little valley from Shuafat is a settlement neighborhood in Jerusalem called French Hill, where people get tax write-offs for living there. So they pay less taxes than the people who are living in the refugee camp. And the standard of living between these two places is just shockingly different. You know, another place that for sure, some of the places that we will visit will be some of the outlying areas around Bethlehem, where some of our Christian brothers and sisters are really struggling to hold on to their property because they're surrounded by ever encroaching settlements. Some of these people you've probably heard of if you've been following what's going on, like the Casilla family, Alice Casilla, and their home from which they were just evicted violently by settlers on July 31st of last year. And they've been struggling to hold on to their house ever since. They are some of the just right outside of Bethlehem, so like just right across the valley from Beit Jala. Anyways, just right in the area where the few remaining Palestinian Christians that remain in the land are still living, and they're leaving faster than ever. We will hear from church leaders across the denominational spectrum about some of the challenges that are facing Palestinian Christians. We will visit Nasser Farm, like Daoud Nassar, Tent of Nations. You may have heard of this area, this family farm. They've been resisting, you know, with nonviolent resistance and with love for decades, trying to hold on to their piece of property as settlers continue to encroach in ways that are even more shocking since October 7th. If we go to Hebron, which I'm sure we will, other than if things really flare up. This is part of the reason why we have to have some flexibility. We will visit with someone like Isa Amro, who's a very well-known nonviolent peace activist living in an area where many of these most violent ideological settlers have set themselves up. All of these Palestinians that we will be visiting, many of them are very, very isolated. They have been for years because of where they're situated, surrounded by settlers, and because very few people will come make the effort to come and visit them, even more so since October 7th. So a big part of this as a peacemaking journey is even showing love and solidarity by making the effort to go, almost like where Jesus said, you know, if you visit someone who's in prison, you have visited me. And that is almost how it feels with some of these people, because they are so now isolated and their lives are under a lot of surveillance and threat. And so we as international groups coming there is one of the best things that we can do to let them know the world sees them and we know what's going on. We're with you. And also let the settlers know around them that there are still internationals who are not being deterred, and you can't just do whatever you want to do and get away with it without there being vocal pushback and more from those who are seeing these things. We will visit Bethlehem Bible College. We will have opportunity to hear from Munther Isaac, who is now like our own rock star with his Serving Christ in the Rebel, which went viral around the world last year. We may have opportunity. I'm just throwing some of these things out because I don't know for sure. Some of these people may be out of the country when we're there, but there's other ones. We may meet with the Sheikh of Al-Aqsa. We may get a special tour into Al-Aqsa where we get to go inside the dome, the actual mosques, which not a lot of tours get to do. We may visit this ancient Palestinian Christian village of Aboud, which has this incredible ancient history and a really deep cultural history that's really, really fascinating. Right next to a little village called Nabi Saleh, where you may have heard of, why is her name slipping my mind? The Lioness of Palestine, Ahed Tamimi. Yeah, the Tamimi family are right next to Aboud. So this might be another trip that we do.
The Gaza envelope, remember?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We will go down to the Gaza envelope. We will also meet
That's the border.
Yes, we will meet with survivors of October 7th. Rabbi Avi Dabush, he's the head now of Rabbis for Human Rights. He was a survivor of October 7th. He lived in one of the kibbutzim that was attacked, and he is just hardcore working for peace and justice. He was before October 7th, and he is even more so now. We may go up to Tel Aviv if there are still hostage families that are doing the type of advocacy work that they are doing. This was one of the things we did when I was there in August. We went up to Tel Aviv and we met with the Hostage Family Forum. We may go to the village of Bil'in, and we will meet with also a lot of intergovernmental organizations. We'll probably meet with a representative of the UN or UNRWA explaining to us whatever's going on with UNRWA at that point in time. We don't know. But these are some of the kinds of things that we will do. We will visit holy sites. We will visit, depopulated Palestinian villages, like the village of Lifta, which is inside of Jerusalem, a depopulated Palestinian village that's left standing. So you can see that. And along the way, we will reflect, we will read scripture, we will pray, we will lament, we will reflect together, and we will exercise our peace-building muscles, learning from those on the ground who have been exercising these muscles for decades. And their voices are the ones that will be centered on this trip. The voices of Palestinian Christians, Muslims, and Jews. We have a lot to learn from those who have been in this, I don't even want to use the word fight, it feels too violent, who have been engaged in this issue for decades. So that's kind of what we'll be doing. We'll be staying in Jerusalem every night, and then we will be doing trips out from Jerusalem. I think we said on the website that Nazareth might be on the itinerary, but I don't think Nazareth will be on the itinerary. I believe we are going to stay just in the Jerusalem area and going mostly in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza envelope. That's going to be our general area.
That's the edge really of where most stuff is happening. Nazareth is pretty calm. So if you want to go to Nazareth and be baptized in the Jordan, you'll have to come back some other time.
Or come early and do some of that stuff ahead of time on your own.
I'm partly tongue in cheek because that is often what happens in the normal tours. People go and they want to go get baptized.
Oh, and I
Um,
forgot to mention that we are coming in and out from Amman, which I know you guys are all aware of that. But we will stay in Madaba the first night, and we will end the tour in Madaba. Madaba is an ancient Christian village.
Hmm.
There have been Christians living there since like the dawn of the church. In fact, like archaeologically and written in like ancient historical records, a lot of the early church from Jerusalem fled prior to 70 AD
Hmm.
over to Jordan. So there has been a Christian community over there from the beginning of the church. And Madaba is a fascinating place because it has this very famous mosaic map of Jerusalem. It's the oldest in the world.
Hmm.
And it goes back to the Byzantine era. It's actually a map of the whole Holy Land with Jerusalem hugely centered
Hmm.
in it. And it will be walking distance from the hotel where we will be staying in Madaba. So it's also kind of a cool thing to experience.
Wonderful. We'll one more thing, and then we'll be open for questions, and we'll try to end somewhere around 5:15, or at least you would have permission to go, obviously. So Carrie, if you could just share that ahlan wasalan ethos that we all experience. And I'll just say briefly that when you make friends in this region, they tend to stick with you.
Hmm. I have a couple things I want to say just because I think it being my first experience there, it might help those who haven't been there maybe know they're what we're talking about when we say um, putting you in a position of maybe, I don't know if I think someone used the word unsettling, not unsafe. I never felt unsafe, but one of the things that I remember vividly, our first night was in Jerusalem, and Andy took me to the old city, and I remember we sat down at a little uh, cafe to have some pomegranate juice
Mm.
and maybe some hummus. And I just remember sitting there very jet lagged and watching families go by, young families, young Jewish families walking by. And it was the first time I'd seen people just openly carrying AK-47s on their one shoulder and pushing a stroller with their other hand. And so it's just something, if you've never been to a military state um, like that, like I'd been to Honduras as a child and I'd seen some of that in Tegucigalpa as a 10-year-old, but it had not prepared me for what I saw in the old city. And it just was, it took me a bit to calibrate to that dynamic, that it wasn't just a concept, it wasn't just this idea or someone's kind of story that I might hear in the United States where, I just have no concept of what that means. So to actually go and see that for myself was, it really helped me feel it in my bones, I guess, to understand those stories in a way
Mm.
that I could never possibly understand if I hadn't been there personally. And I never felt unsafe. And this is one thing that I tell everyone who's, you know, talking about going there or thinking about going there is that one of the things that, being a United States passport holder and is that, international presence it is a it's a protective presence in places where there are Palestinians, because the last thing that the occupation forces want is for bad PR, for internationals to, be harmed. And also just, within all of those contexts, because it's so heavily protected, that I guess as passport holders, we're safer. We're definitely safer than Palestinians, obviously. I mean, we know that from the last 15 months, but being able to go there and see it firsthand really impacted me, and it made me more, I guess, compelled to learn why that was happening, why that was so. Because I know stuff like that doesn't just happen in a vacuum. There's always going to be history behind anything that you see in a place of conflict like that. And so for me to be able to see that and experience what I could see from the Israeli Jewish side in that space, and then also see what the Palestinians, even just their body language and the way they inhabit their space, it really spoke to me. And then being able to be in that space and meet Palestinians in spite of all of the challenges that they face, and also being there as an American, again, a US passport holder, one who comes there with privilege, one who comes there with a US, quote unquote flag, which means something very, to a Palestinian, they see USA stamps on the tear gas canisters and on the bombs, that are dropped. And so to come there as a US citizen and to be welcomed like they welcomed us, knowing all of the baggage that we bring with us, to feel that welcome from them and hospitality. And I think the desire for them to have us hear their story was really transformative for me. So I think the word transformation is really good. I met some friends of Andy's when we were there in 2018, and they have become like family to me as they were with Andy. I also met other people there. We met them just walking down the street and on the bus, and we have good friends there now that, if we go there and don't see them, I mean, I'd have to hide. I would be forever shamed if I didn't go see them. And so I know that's part of our itinerary, is to visit them ourselves.
Mm.
I say all that because I just want to impress on everyone. It's one thing to read about it and one thing to see it in the news.
Mm.
And I think when you're there and you can feel it yourself, it makes all the difference.
Mm.
It also helped me want to know more about the history.
Mm.
And one of the things that I've talked about in some of my writings is just how it drove me to learn more of the history from the history books, the things that I'd never learned in school, even about the Jewish history, things about the pogroms and all the things that led up to that, and going through Yad Vashem, just really how that opened my eyes to see, in all of the frustration and all of the sometimes anger that I feel, it allowed me to see the humanity of their past, or the trauma that has fed into some of the, call it the overreaction or the overreach or the aggressive nature of the occupation. So seeing that and feeling that really cemented that, I guess, forever quest to understand more and to try to learn what I needed to learn to understand it for myself, but also help others who come from a place like me, who had no understanding, real understanding, to feel that same compelling to learn more and to find that voice. I think we all probably on this call are here in some way because we want to find our voice and we want to figure out how we reach people. And I think this, or even just how to talk about it and how to understand it. And I think this is definitely a way to do that, to at least start that.
We want to open up for questions. If people have questions, please. We want to try to answer those, and if we can't answer them, we'll find the answer. How's that? Anything. It's wide open.
Gordon, do you have a question? If you could unmute. Can you unmute, Gordon?
There's a button on your thing. We can't hear you.
Maybe while Gordon's figuring that out, I do see that David Vidmar has a question in the chat. Deadline.
Is it okay? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. My name is Gordon from Kenya, and I'm so happy to be part of this, and especially as a peace activist. And just to go and identify myself, my life, and my calling with our friends in Palestine really makes it a very special thing for me in my life. And probably it could be one of the things that I would never, ever forget in my life. I feel traumatized, really traumatized when I watch all this situation on the TV every moment of time until I would ask, how do these people cope with this situation?
Right.
And how about the children seeing all this and what will be their next generation? So a lot has been happening in Palestine and it really touched me. I feel considered so special by you for the invitation to join this team. I have two questions, and one is, due to the fact that in Kenya, I have to go through a lot of processes towards getting a visa. Is there any possibility of having my visa done from your end, from Israel, or from Palestine, whichever the embassy, so that I could only have to send my documents for this? And two, I have been made to understand that there is a deposit that must be paid. And one, to get more information, like when I was going through the catalog and all that information. And if I still cannot afford to get the deposit right in time, would it be possible for an open door for mercy so that I don't get late with what is needed, and especially all about the finances, which quite is a big challenge on my side, despite the fact that my heart is so enthusiastic on all this to join, to go and be there to identify myself with the Palestinians. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you, Gordon. As for your visa, we will have to talk with our friends at Sabile and see what they would suggest for that. And also in terms of the deposit, we'll talk about that and get back to you. Yeah.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I can go ahead and read David's question. His question is deadlines for decisions.
He's there. He can talk, can he?
Yes. Why don't you
Just
FDR.
I wonder how it's different now on on tours than it was previously, because a lot of us probably have been following social media, or at least following Mercy's posts, so we're much more educated than has been in the past. So
In what regard, David?
oh, just like you're not so much starting from scratch like maybe we did 10 years ago or something when we first went. But yeah, and then what about the deadlines? What deadlines should we be aware of? But that's just a pondering question. You don't have, there's nothing you'd have to answer, or just curious.
Well, I know one thing that I can answer, and that is the mobility in between spaces is a lot tighter now than when I think you and Terry and your kids, you kind of moved around and were able to access different places probably more readily. I think now that's quite a bit more conscripted. And but that's where Sabia will help us kind of facilitate that. And we'll be in groups. I've been told by another person with Episcopal Church in Ramallah that in the urban centers you can move around. There's a lot of mobility still, but between places is harder and harder to get to rural regions. But again, Sabia will be the logistics experts on that. I don't know about the question. What was the other question about? I think it's the end of March. We're asking for the deposit, and then the end of, is it May? I think is what we're asking for the final payment.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we can work with you, like if you're if you're making payments in chunks and you're like, my next payment is coming, my next paycheck is coming after the deadline or whatever, we can work with you. Just let us know, if you're making like good faith payments along the way, we will consider you. We're not going to cut you off if you don't get it at the, as long as worst case scenario, it'd have to be in before the trip. But yeah.
Was there a minimum number for the tour to be viable? I don't recall reading that. Maybe that was in there.
Yeah. I think we were going to shoot for around 12 for a minimum. We don't want to go higher than 30. And it's nicer if it's a little bit smaller, but we don't want to close the door if there are more people who show up wanting to go.
What's your feeling for where we're at now for the group?
I would say we're viable.
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of the interest, and then people who are not on this call that have expressed interest, I think
Yeah.
we'll have a good group.
There's people who've paid deposits who aren't even on this conversation with us. So yeah.
And Eric, also, it's our objective, the three co-leaders, to self-fund. In other words, we have with PCI, we're raising our funds so that we're many tours. In fact, this is the way many people market it, is the pastor goes free, the leader goes free if he fills a bus, and that's not our objective.
Okay, thanks for letting me know that. Yeah. You're right, that's the norm. So
yeah, this is ministry for us.
okay.
It looks like there's some questions over in the chat. Isabel K wrote, hello, thanks for your effort. My questions, can we take gifts for Palestinians? I think that's lovely. Like in the trips that I've done in the past, if people we've encouraged people to bring gifts, and then whenever someone speaks to the group, we'll give them, you know, a gift from out of the pool, and maybe even give them a card or something like that, expressing our appreciation.
Financial gifts though, right? Or what kind of gifts?
Oh, were you asking me or were you sorry?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, whatever you suggested, whatever seemed appropriate, you know, whatever's most useful or appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's nice to bring, you know, a little something. We don't want to be probably too extravagant or
Yeah.
whatever, but you know, just a little something is nice.
I
Can we take photographs? Absolutely. As far as taking photographs of people that you might want to post on social, some of the people that we're speaking with are very used to being photographed and they expect, you know, that's no big deal. As far as others, there may be times when you want to ask, you know, and in those types of situations, we will rely on the wisdom, particularly of Omar and the other Palestinians who will be leading us, like, put away your phones. We don't want to even have them out right now. Or yes, we have permission, go ahead and take photos, you know, with these kids or whatever.
What if I have a
just say
nervous
we wanna-
breakdown?
I would just say we want to be sensitive, though. I think we all, you know, maybe we've all been in a situation where we felt like a fish in a fishbowl, and you know, we want to be respectful of their situation, and that's one side, and then the other side is I know that the Palestinians do want their story told. They want, I mean, so in some cases it's yes, take all of the pictures you can because no one ever sees these.
Right.
I think
and
it's
take
really
videos too, you know.
and take so
We'll
I think
ask. We'll ask and be sensitive. I think that's the important thing is, you know, just like anywhere, you ask for their permission, and generally that's it did. So when I was in EA, they wanted the story told, as both Mercy and Carrie have said. Muslim women may not want their picture
Right.
blasted, but we'll ask
I was
that.
also thinking of the security, you know, like
Yeah.
the,
Thanks for asking. That's a
you
great
know,
question.
Yeah.
if you're being observed, and
Right.
I mean, a lot of the time, like we just had a protest here in San Diego yesterday at a Tesla dealer. And of course, I mean, and the security people come up and they take photos of everybody,
Yeah.
you know, so we're getting used to this police state.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did say, what if we have a nervous breakdown? And I'm saying this, I mean, that's what you intimated, that you will be there to help us deal with things,
Yeah.
because I mean, I think like Gordon said, I have felt nauseated
Mm.
for what, 16 months. I just, you know,
Yeah.
that's how it is. And so I guess maybe I'm getting, but just if you have, it sounds great that if you have approaches to help us deal with what I think could be
Right. Yeah.
overwhelming.
Yes.
And the goal
So-
is not to traumatize anyone.
No.
It's just, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you might be processing a lot for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, I mean,
But that's part of the reason that we really draw on, you know, times of prayer and
Mhm.
spiritual practices
Yeah.
and conversations along the way, because I have seen some of these types of solidarity trips where they don't have that aspect and they're just out there in the grind, and people can get really ground down.
mhm.
So, as
Mm.
you know, Peace Catalyst, our whole goal with this is to help form us as peace
Mhm.
builders through
Mhm.
this process, which also includes spiritual self-care,
Right.
individually and in community. So there will be definitely that happening.
So I see two more or three more questions. One is about orphans. Was that yours,
Yeah.
Isabel?
I mean, I've heard that there are like 30,000 orphans. And I mean, I have no interest in, what can I say, bringing, a Palestinian child to the United States to rescue them. I mean, unless that's absolutely whatever their family would want. It's more like, is there a mechanism to help them by somehow,
Yeah.
Well, I know she's been very involved with the community in Gaza. I'm sure you could speak to that, Mercy.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, probably the best thing that we can do, we don't know how things are going to be in July,
Mhm.
let's face it. I mean, we don't know at all. But providing support and help for this tremendous need is certainly one of our central goals. And we do have some very good organizations and people that we know that we're working with.
Yeah.
At the very least, if we want to give like financially into those efforts that are doing work on the ground in Gaza and other places within the occupied West Bank.
Yeah,
What
I
I-
mean, I would love to know that because there's so many
Yeah.
appeals, and
Yeah.
it looks like all of them are genuine and doing good work, but it's just hard to choose.
So
Well,
one
if
of
you want
the,
to give to some appeals right now, I can tell you some that are good, but we can talk about that later.
I think also the approach here has to be done really, really carefully. There are orphans that have happened mostly because of what's going on in Gaza. But many of the orphans are assimilated into the family structure if the family
Mhm.
or
Right.
relatives. And
Yeah.
it's not like there's these I mean, there are cases, obviously.
Yeah.
So we would have to be very, very careful and that often is a trigger for people or a heart tug, and we just want to be careful not to
Right.
Our
do no
first-
harm, to do no
Yeah.
harm within their systems.
Yeah.
Our first desire would be to strengthen the families there, the
Right.
communities there. I mean,
Right.
that is the best way to care for an orphan.
Mhm.
So Perry, she had a question about, let's see, are there different vaccines I should get? I'm a pharmacist, oh, good question.
You can tell your doctor where you're going, and they can look up. There's websites, I think, that they can find out what vaccines you need. That's what I did before going.
But I've never gotten a vaccine
Hmm.
coming and going. Like it's
Well, and I also think of that as like, I don't want to take anything, but I take all my vaccines, but I don't want to, where medical care is limited, or, I don't want to bring anything, but I mean,
Yeah.
but I'll check on that.
yeah.
Okay.
There's no laws about any vaccines required to enter
Okay.
Israel. And when we go to the occupied West Bank, it's under Israel's control.
Okay.
So Terry asked, and this was a question I've heard other people say more about the Gaza envelope. So yeah, that's an interesting way to talk about.
Yeah, because when we think of Gaza, we think of rockets and stuff like that. So
Or
Mercy,
going
you've been
into-
there.
Yeah.
We'll be
Right.
proximate, but not in.
Yeah, we're not going into Gaza. The Gaza envelope is the area that the state of Israel refers to within Israel proper territory that is around Gaza. And so that is an area that we will most likely go on this. I mean, it's on our plan to go down to that area. And so depending on the hospitality of the Jewish people who will be hosting us for this particular aspect of the tour, we may go into a kibbutz, one of the kibbutzim that were under attack on October 7th, or we may meet in an area outside. Like when I was there, we had an interfaith prayer meeting with Jews and Muslims and Christians together right at the Gaza border, just a few kilometers from Gaza. At an old excavated synagogue floor from the Byzantine era, and we just had it outside. So we may do that. There are places where you can actually see like Khan Yunis and other places in Gaza from around that area. So we will probably do that also. in order just to stretch out our hands and pray for that area, not to gawk, but to see it visually and do what we can spiritually in terms of praying. So yeah.
Was there more there, Terry?
Well, I don't, I'm not concerned about going there. I was actually, that's where I want to go. Not
Yeah.
because I've been to the West Bank and, it's hard to hear all the stories. I want to do something and I'm a nurse. And so I see all the things happening in Gaza and I want to go and help. So that's what I'm,
Yeah.
that's why I'm still deciding
Well,
because
who knows? Like, there's this little part of me that goes, maybe by July there
right.
could be some possible way that we could even go in for a day. I doubt it. Like, I would say chances are super
Yeah.
slim, but if we had opportunity to do something like that, I think we would definitely try to make that happen. Yeah.
And I think
But-
this group is connected well enough
Right.
to, that if it was a possibility, this would be the group to go with, right, Mercy?
Yes.
Well, Terry, to answer your question in terms of you will get a sense of what's going on definitely through our contacts and Sabeel, that you'll be up to date or current, or you'll see the status and kind of have a sense as a healthcare worker what Gazans are dealing with. And as you know and as you read, it's pretty
Right. And that's the part I can't handle. I
uh
can't watch the news. I can't hear things. It's
Yeah.
too hard for me if I can't do something, yes, pray, but I
Yeah.
want to give immunizations to the kids that are,
Yeah.
exposed to polio because they haven't been able to get those in,
Mhm.
that's what helps me,
Yeah.
I think just hearing and
Right.
weighing. I'm
No.
built that way. I don't know how you guys all do it. I'm impressed. I just can't do that. Yeah.
No, I appreciate your heart, your concern on that. And we all have to, I think we all have that same paralysis, that there's that you can only take in so much information without doing something. Right, Judy?
I think
Looks like-
that we have a good crew here in the sense that just looking at people's occupations and their ministries, I think we'll all be helping each other.
Yeah.
Through this.
It looks like Apurva wrote a question about traveling. Apurva, do you want to just speak your questions?
Yes, hi. I wanted to ask, I see that we will be crossing the bridge on 30th. What is your recommendation to be there? In Amman, will you be, I know everybody will be booking their own tickets, but is there a way to book tickets together, fly from somewhere? What is the expectation around that? And
Yeah.
what is the jet lag? Because I just recently traveled to India and it took me 36 hours. I know it's not going to be like that. But I
Pretty
know
close.
somewhere it will be. So what is the expectation? A day early to get some rest or?
Yeah. On the tour that I did with Sabeel in August, there were a handful of people that flew into Amman a day before some of the others of us, just so they had a day to, maybe they wanted to hang out and just enjoy Madaba a little bit or see some stuff in Amman. So if you're the kind of person who knows you really deal with jet lag, I would suggest getting in a day earlier too. As far as like your hotel and things being covered, that's not going to start till the official first night of the tour. Sabeel actually works with some Palestinian travel agencies, and we want to give our business to them because we want this trip, among other things, to help their economy, which is so depressed and so struggling because of the war. On the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, anyone who's been working in tourism is just, it's decimated for them, but it's always more so, it's more acute for Palestinians than whatever it is for Israelis. So we want to work with Sabeel on this. So we will send you some of their suggested links in terms of booking your ticket through a travel agency working with Sabeel. And then that's just one more way that we are putting more money into their economy. But if sometimes some people had trouble doing that, or it just worked easier for them because of some other situation they had and they booked their own ticket. So you're also welcome to do that. When I flew with the trip, it just so happened that there were like 3 or 4 people on the same trip that were on the same flight. And we realized who each other were because we recognized each other from Zoom, so we could probably set up a group chat or something like that if there are people flying from different areas or who have different ideas wanting to fly together. We can, help try to arrange that, work with you for that.
We're ideally not booking by ourselves, but through Sabeel for the flights as well. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
You can do either.
Yeah, you can do
You can do either.
Because it's in June and then we're already halfway through February. So I don't, the tickets will get expensive as we move closer. Another question is I have an Indian passport. So for you, when you go to Jordan, do you have to get a visa? Do you have a visa on arrival for both Jordan and Israel?
We will all have to fill out a little visa thing for Jordan ahead of time, and Sabeel will help us with that. They'll send us the paperwork and things that we need to fill out. And then I believe Israel is now also requiring people to fill things out ahead of time, which they used to not. So this will be my first experience having to fill something out for Israel also ahead of time, but we will get all that information to you.
Awesome, because I don't have American passport. My passport is Indian. So I just have to be maybe more prepared and plan better when I'm traveling. Just trying to be proactive.
Yeah.
Mercy, Isabel has a question about the Petra trip and whether it's possible to do that beforehand. Do you know if Sabeel would be able to accommodate a before trip Petra extension?
Instead of an after trip?
Yeah, to help people deal with jet lag, to kind of get acclimated beforehand, maybe.
We had thought about doing it afterwards just because it's more of a way to kind of unwind and debrief after the intensity of being in the occupied territories and everything that we'll see. And it just seemed to make more sense with us when we were talking about it with Sabeel that the Petra edition would be afterwards. And I think we've already announced that it's going to be afterwards. So I don't know that we would want to change that at this point.
But people could go on their own.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, people
and
can
just
do whatever they want.
Petra
Yeah, for sure.
and
Yeah. You can go on your own, and there's local, tour things that you could research, probably Google, and just find if you wanted to do that ahead of time.
Or Isabel, if you wanted kind of something that's vetted, Sabeel would have information on that. We could forward
tour
that to you.
company.
Yeah. Sabeel isn't a tour agency. They are a ministry that works on the ground. So for them we just asked them, like, could you kind of connect us with friends and people in Jordan to put something together? So that's why it's still kind of, we need to find out from them what the minimum requirement would be to make the Petra edition viable. I don't know how many people are interested in that. I haven't heard a lot from people, so I don't know. But I think we would have to have a minimum of maybe like 5 or something, I would think.
And we're committed as a leadership team to have one of us with you. So we haven't, but it's contingent on who wants to do that part.
Yeah. So
I would
we'll just
definitely go to Petra, for sure. But yeah, no, I understand. And I'm sure there's plenty to do while acclimating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That came up for a number of people, flying in and then all of a sudden just hitting the road real quick. Carrie and I like to take a few days just to acclimate. We're still trying to figure out some of the details of that, but I understand that Apurva? Yeah. Or anybody else, especially we're traveling from the West Coast. That's a long trip. It's not as far as India, but
I am in Indiana. But I just visited, so I was trying to compare with the jet lag and everything.
yeah.
So, yeah, I am here
It's,
in Indiana.
I think with layovers, isn't it around when all is said and done, almost 20 hours? Mercy,
From the West Coast.
Andy?
I
Yeah,
think
for
it
us.
depends on how many layovers, yeah,
And how long your layover
how
is,
long
yeah.
they are. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
any other burning questions before we close in prayer? We're starting to lose some people, and I know that, um, y'all may. Anybody else have a question?
Corey had a question. Sorry, we're just coming
Yeah.
in. We just got home, but he was curious about the dress code. Are there like things that are recommended that we wear, recommended that we avoid?
Great question.
don't bring short shorts.
Sure.
It's going to be hot. Some areas will be hotter than others because it is summer. Bring things that are loose, flowy, cotton, linen, things like that, things that can be layered. It's good to always have some things that you can, it's not generally good to show your legs. I
Yeah.
mean, it isn't, it's just better to bring, longer trousers. If you're a guy, try to get something thin and light. If you're a woman, skirts or pants, light flowy stuff is good.
Trekking, hiking pants is what I would use often because it's a lighter material and you could be, kind of khaki looking, but relaxed. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't show my legs.
comfortable, you know, modest is good, especially because going in and out of places, churches, mosques, even some of the Jewish areas, we just don't know where all the places we're going to be, but you always want to have something to make sure that you're going to have your arms, legs, even your hair or your head covered at times. Definitely.
Okay.
We'll send this type of information out to you guys also in a packing list.
Yeah.
Great question.
Generally, just bring a scarf and a skirt on top of whatever else you might.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about like some of the work that Peace Catalyst has done and yeah, I guess I'll just stop there.
In the region over there,
Yeah.
because we're global, we do stuff all over.
Okay.
We're just kicking off. Peace Catalyst is really just kicking off for this region, and it's mainly because Andy and Carrie and myself, and then a handful of other people who've been involved in this issue have recently come on board with PCI. We do also have there's at least one local, Salim Anfous, who is Palestinian Christian, who is also joining PCI. So this is kind of one of our first things that we're doing as an organization in terms of advocating.
But
In
go ahead, Gabrielle.
I was just curious about like if you guys ever feel any hostility, I guess, from like if there are people that know that we're working with Palestinians and with a peace organization. Do you ever feel any like Palestinian or not uh from like the
Israeli.
Israeli side, is there
Yeah,
ever any like hostility, even if there's not like outright things that are making you feel unsafe?
that's a
They
good
don't know who
question.
we are. Yeah, we're not like on their radar yet, but a lot of them don't like the word peace. Like they hear we're Peace Catalyst, they might get angry. Um,
But
But we're
I've
coming through
never,
Sabile, or like what org
Yeah.
are we going to be saying when we come in through the airport?
We're not coming in through the airport through Tel Aviv.
that's
So
not an issue.
we'll be crossing as a group at the Allenby Bridge crossing from Jordan. And we're going to do like the tourist crossing because it's very common that tourists cross back and forth there. And so you don't even get asked any questions. You just go right through and you exit right through. It's very easy.
And how do you explain the like travel into the occupied West Bank, into those areas that you said are like the touristy organizations are less likely to go to? Like, is there a lot of questions that happen?
When every time I've exited with a tourist group through Allenby, you don't get asked anything.
Okay.
It's better
We-
than flying out of the airport. Like it's
But
easier.
but I hear in your question, we don't we don't tell people that we're going to Hebron,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
we just don't. We're just
right.
we're pilgrims, and
Yeah.
that's a category that's legitimate that
Yeah.
they
Okay.
expect.
And if they ask what we were doing, just say I stayed in Jerusalem for a week, which is true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not trying to obfuscate,
Well,
but
and what we're going to be doing, if there's
Right. We're going to Jerusalem. We're gonna be there for a week.
we're not, yeah, we're not trying to be deceptive, but Israel does not want people like us going to some of the places we're going to.
Yeah.
That is a reality that we all have to deal with. But Gabrielle, I've never felt I felt some tension in places where I was standing with Palestinians in Hebron and there was a soldier. But it's more like, don't you want to hear our story? Don't you want to hear our side? Because they see that we're listening to a narrative that doesn't support or doesn't agree with their narrative. That has happened to me, but it's not a feature that I've ever felt threatened or insecure. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Yeah, no, that definitely answered the question. Because I've never been there, and the stuff
Yeah.
that you see on social media or even just from other books I've read have talked about, as soon as somebody finds out that you are, the word peace or,
Yeah.
and I also don't know like how much monitoring they do of who's coming and going. So in my mind, I'm like, man, I've posted all of these things on social media. Like, I don't know if anybody's going to know
I
about that.
usually delete Facebook from my phone, those apps, social media apps, before I go in, and I'll do a like clean some of my posts and make them private to me only before I go, just as a precaution.
Okay.
They've never
used
asked
do
to look
all
at my
that kind of
phone.
stuff.
I've never,
But-
yeah, no one's ever asked to look at my phone.
Yeah. I used to be all nervous and do that kind of stuff. Now I don't bother because it just it's not it should not be an issue. Also, if you are a US citizen, and I know that does not apply to everyone here, but if you are a US citizen, we are part of this visa waiver program with Israel. And since that was just launched a few years ago, and since that was launched, it has been way easier coming
Yeah.
and going from Israel
My experience.
because they have to abide by, certain parameters in terms of allowing Americans in with ease. So it's really easier right now in a way than it has been, and especially going through Allenby. That's one of the reasons that we're doing it to and from Jordan, because we don't have to worry about airlines canceling flights to Tel Aviv, which has happened on and off during the course of this war. We can all get there securely to Amman, and then we cross together as a tourist group through Allenby, and it's very low key, very quick and low key.
We have stories, but it's my stories have been more around the exiting in Tel Aviv, and that
Yeah.
there's been places where I've been asked questions or I'm profiled because they want to know where I've been.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It's better for us that we're not going through Tel Aviv, honestly. It's a better entrance.
And I typically wear a cross around my neck when I go.
And she puts on a little more lipstick, and she plays the Zionist pilgrim.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to flaunt kind of oh, I mean, a cute cross, yeah.
Nonviolent resistance.
Yes.
But for anybody, feel free to, shoot us questions after we're done here.
Yeah. I see another question from Isabel. As Westerners, we don't go through checkpoints. No, we will go through checkpoints, many checkpoints. There's no way to get into the occupied West Bank and many of the places that we'll be going to in Jerusalem without passing through checkpoints. Usually you just, you go through. Like I've been through hundreds of checkpoints in my
You
time.
flash your US passport and
then you just go.
Yeah.
Generally.
But once you get into the West Bank, they have what they call flying checkpoints. So, our vehicle could always be stopped and asked, but they're checking for Palestinians, almost all the time.
Or they're just flexing their muscles and
Yeah.
reminding everyone that they're running the show, So
Yeah.
sometimes, like when I was on the trip in August, there was a checkpoint that popped up and we were stuck, in our little bus that we were traveling in for a good hour there. It was very annoying. And we finally got out, a few of us got out of the bus and we walked up to the checkpoint. This is Omar. Hello, we're Americans. We're tourists. We're a group of tourists. We just want to know, how long is the wait here at this checkpoint? How long? Because we need to plan. And the soldiers will try to blow you off. No, we're just asking you how long. Like, we might do some interactive things like that, possibly. Because there are lots of checkpoints all across in the West Bank right now, way more than there ever were. We don't know what the situation's going to be in July, so we just have to be willing to roll with the situation. And if we do get stuck in a checkpoint and we miss an event such as we did on that day, it's just like, welcome to Palestinian life. So it's another opportunity to just go, this is what it's like. And it actually then just becomes part of the story of the trip. It's one of the events that you experience.
Another question about attire. I assume avoiding anything that would signal support of Palestine.
Yeah, I don't wear my keffiyeh. I
Yeah.
usually don't wear that.
Yeah. Don't pass through any of the borders with that flaunting anything. And it's also good if you have like a Star of David that you might want to wear some. Don't do it. It's better not to have anything like that. Just wear a cross, or like when we're out with Palestinians somewhere deep in the West Bank and you have your keffiyeh and you want to wear it, great, do that. But definitely when you're passing through the Israeli areas, I wouldn't flaunt that. It's just not worth the hassle that it could create.
And also, you mentioned that there will be day trips. How long typically is travel time from like the hotel into these different destinations?
Yeah, anywhere from, 10 minutes to an hour, maybe. All the places we're going to are pretty close by. If we do have a longer drive, like maybe 2 hours could possibly be the longest, but we would do something that day where we would stop on the way and see something on the way. So we're not just sitting in the bus for long extended periods of time.
Cool.
Yeah, these are great questions.
Sorry, I have one more question.
No.
Sorry, this is the last one. Marcy, you mentioned like we would be going to a spot where right across the street there was a bombing or have been multiple bombings. So I guess that just like brings up how I mean, obviously we can't know everything, but when they're determining like what areas are safe to go versus not, like how is that determined?
So like when those events happened, things were what people often say, it was getting real hot in there. If there's an area that's really hot, like there's a lot of tension that's going on and it's out, like the army's all around or the settlers went on a rampage or someone was just killed or something
We
like
don't
that.
go
We're not gonna be like, oh, let's just go right in the middle of that. That's where we'll be flexible. We'll say, you know what? There's this other great person that we can hear from or very interesting situation off, in a different direction, and that's where we're going to go today. So
Okay, so usually there are like signs before anything major breaks out that can help.
Yes,
like,
yes, for sure.
And the bombings that she's referring to were done by the Israeli military, so that's usually planned, anticipated by at least by, I mean, the people we work with would know all those signals. So
Yes.
we're hyper careful. I mean, I think that's just something that we're committed to.
Yeah. And they usually do those types of bombings. If they do bombings in the West Bank, which is it's noteworthy because it's not that common. Like, what? You're actually bombing villages in the West Bank? Like, it's usually at night. That's another thing.
Okay.
There's places like Nablus or Janine, and
exactly
in places where we're probably not going to go.
Right. Okay. So some of the hotspot places that are tentatively on our agenda, we may end up doing 2 of them rather than 3, or we may, instead of doing one on Monday, we may do it on Saturday or whatever, So that's what I'm saying, when there's a certain amount of flexibility. But you can trust that this is going to be a very full, very rich, very eye-opening, challenging in many ways, but really deep and also very safe. Omar, just to quote him one more time, he said, I don't take my groups anywhere that I would not take my 3-year-old son.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
It's I think my way also to characterize it is it's not like I'm trying to think of, we see stuff online and it creates a little bit of it can create a little bit of anxiety because you see some stuff that's pretty ugly. But Israel is one of the world's most one of the strongest militaries, and so they really control what's going on. Does that make any sense? So it's not like a civil war.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm answering that well.
I've lived at the Bible College. I lived between 2 refugee camps that were often being tear gassed. Molotov cocktails would go off, skunk water. The army would come in and do arrests. They would drive down on our street in front of the Bible College, shooting tear gas and skunk water. Sometimes even a tree would catch on fire or somebody. And I would, along with a lot of the students at the Bible College, we would sit right there on the roof and you would just look out and see all this happening. And then you'd run inside if the tear gas got real thick, run inside and and then maybe come out a bit later. I lived through, and I just realized, okay, this is just another weird dysfunction of life. Like, you kind of get used to it, even though it's totally dysfunctional. Hopefully you guys won't be in the middle of anything even that bad, but even in that situation, we were 100% safe, but hopefully you guys won't even see anything like that. Like if we know that there's a demonstration and a clash that is going on somewhere and there's gas that's being fired and whatever, we're going to take a wide berth around that and, head to a different part of the town or whatever. And you just realize like there's millions of people that live in the Holy Land every single day. They get up in the morning, they go to school, they buy their bread, they come home, they sleep, across Israel and Palestine. You might live in Chicago. A lot of people have remarked, and I've said the same. I felt safer walking around Bethlehem, even the refugee camps late at night, than I
Mm.
would in any big American city walking downtown at the same time of night. You're safer.
Yeah, that's my sense as well. Mm. Great questions.
Yeah, very good questions.
Should I close in prayer, or
Yeah.
Mercy, how about if you?
This has gone for like almost 2 hours. I think we
Oh,
should
wow.
go there.
90 minutes, yeah. Okay, let me close our time in prayer, and also just we're committed to answering questions and walking with everybody through this. If you haven't decided yet, also we just want to hold space where you can entertain the idea and be prayerful and thoughtful about it. So for sure. I know some people have dietary issues. Someone's getting a knee brace, so we're gonna be attentive to all the needs that people have within our group. It's not a marathon. There'll be long days, but we also are sensitive to the needs of people in our group, and we will be moving a lot. It's you get used to walking before you travel. I think it's just a good thing to do anyway.
And I'll just say I have dietary issues, and I can always find something that I can eat there.
And the food is amazing. It's all I haven't had but well, let's pray. God, we thank you for this group of people and for the interest in um, committing to a learning posture and a listening posture and a bearing witness posture to going into to seeing with our own eyes what we hear about, what we read about. And we just invite you to be in the preparation for all of us, just even as we maybe still are pondering whether this trip is for us or not. Just be with us in this journey and prepare us. We ask that we would just be ready for what it is that you want us to experience and see, and that our commitment to peace with justice would grow, that we would understand parts of the story maybe that we haven't heard or been exposed to. And we pray that we could be, I don't know, just good international accompaniers to those on the ground that feel not seen, that feel not heard, that feel in some way the world is looking beyond what they've experienced and what they know. So give us a sense where or a posture where we will lean in and hear and listen and just grow through this experience. We all have things that we are doing in our lives that I know will be impacted by this journey. And so we pray that you would help us to live in spaces, to walk and chew gum, I guess, at the same time, where we sustain our life, our careers, our families, but care deeply about this place and what is happening. So teach us, guide us, prepare us, help us to be ready for what it is that you want us to see and experience. And for Omar and for Sabeel, be with them as we collaborate with them and learn with them and hear their own perspective and stories. Just give us a teachable heart and mind. Thank you again just for this time together and for each person. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Any
Really
last questions before we leave? Anybody want to, Mercy, you want to send everybody off or what? Any last words?
Just going to say great to see everyone's faces. I'm really excited for this trip, for this pilgrimage together. I'm really looking forward to it and getting to know you guys and being there for such a time as this. So thank you for your courage and your compassion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once you send in your deposit, we will send you the link for the NEMI, the Network of Evangelicals. It's a wonderful curriculum that you can just go through at your own pace to kind of orient you to issues on the ground and learn some of the history. It's called Ascent to Jerusalem, Pilgrimage Politics and Peacemaking in the Holy Land. I narrated the whole thing, so I'll have to look at my face, which is terribly embarrassing. But it's a very, very, very good. It's very wide and broad and smart. It's very smart. So once you send your deposit in, you'll get a link to that and you can start going through that at your own pace and time.
And we'll reach out to y'all for some other scheduled Zoom meetings just in preparation for this time.
Yeah. Well, I think once we get people's deposits, that's when we will, you know, yeah. So send in your deposit as soon as you make up your mind and get things moving.
Good to be with you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.